Welcome to Implicating the Real. Today's show is part 2 of the conversation began in the previous episode. Let's get right into it. Hope you enjoy.
Do you want to start chapter 3?
Yeah, we better.
I love the start of chapter 3. I laughed so hard when I read it.
What are you laughing about?
Chapter 3, Seth starts out right away. Now, I have friends. Seth wants you to know. Seth has friends, okay? Seth probably has more friends than you do, okay?
That's hilarious. Because it's always the people that like come out and say it that don't actually have friends.
Yeah.
And he's like so needy to like be in this dimension with Rob and Jane.
Mm-hmm. It's like, look, I have friends in my home dimension. I have lots of friends. Okay.
That's hilarious.
Like I don't need to be here teaching you. I have friends.
Whatever you say, man.
Whatever you say, man.
We are aware of what you would call past selves, those personalities we have adopted in various other existences. Because we use telepathy, we can hide little from each other, even if we wish to. We kind of, has he repeated that?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you said that already.
That they can telepath. I think a lot of chapter 3 recovers a lot of the material that was already in chapter 2. You know? Like a lot of it's just like, this is what it's like to be me. And it's like, yeah, man, that was last chapter.
I think in general, he's very frequently repeating himself. But I found like it's often necessary and helpful to get you into the context of what he's going into.
I had this one thing actually at the beginning though. He says, we choose our thoughts with some discrimination and finesse. Right? So like these like teacher beings that Seth is one of, they have the ability to sort of like make choices about what thought patterns they're going to be engaging in, which I think people can empathize with, right? Like I think that ends up being a lot of like cognitive behavioral therapy, right? That people do.
Right.
Is like, well, I know that I get into this pattern of ways of thinking about the world, and I'm going to cut myself off and engage in a different pattern of thinking about the world, right?
Because it's become unhealthy usually.
Yeah.
It's like I work with patients that are committed, mentally ill and dangerous. And often when people hear that I work with them, they'll say something sympathetic about that being difficult or, you know, that must be hard because people have these delusions. And often I'm telling them like I got friends that are crazier than the people I work with. The difference is just like, you know, the people I work with have crossed a line that's like, you know, hurt or threatened themselves or somebody else. And we kind of don't have the capacity, and it's a good thing we don't, to police people for like thinking crazy things.
Yeah, because that's just an inherent part of being a person, right?
And it's especially hard to say that now when people are like believing such craziness, like politically, I think.
People have always been kooks though.
Yeah, it's true. It's just, I think our technology gives us different abilities to like trumpet those ideas into the world. And
yeah, now you can find out about it because people will, you know, post it online.
Yep.
That's for sure. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because it says like, we choose our thoughts with some discrimination and finesse. But then a little bit later it says, you know, this does not mean that we're not spontaneous. Was an interesting thing to me. Because like, if I go off of that jumping point of like, oh, this reminds me of like, you know, altering your own cognitive patterns. Like, to me, the thing you are sacrificing there is you aren't being spontaneous. You're being intentional, you know?
It seems contradictory.
It seems contradictory to be like, I'm being intentional about discriminating the choices of thought patterns I have. And yet also I'm being spontaneous about the thought pattern that I'm having.
There's other books where he spends a lot of time talking about a balance between discipline and spontaneity.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard, not that I like as well read, you know, especially in philosophy as you, but I've never heard spontaneity talked about in such a manner. And what I've gathered, what he means by that is that, you know, without spontaneity, we are controlled with this like outer ego, you know, the part of ourselves that has like adopted its conception of the world, you know, through our experience in the physical world.
Sure.
And spontaneity, or like through the impulses, as he will say elsewhere, is kind of like that sixth source of information, which is often coming from the inner self. So he's often saying, like, especially in terms of reality creation, we think like, oh, if we want a new house, it has to like develop in this specific manner,
right,
according to the rules of cause and effect and the laws of this world and stuff. But he's kind of saying like sometimes our like impulses are ways where the inner self has this knowledge of like probabilities. And like when you think in those terms, the way that I get this new house that I want or something could be like so circuitous and counterintuitive to the way I think that path needs to envelop. But like following your spontaneity actually like sets you in a better position to pursue the probabilities that you want to actualize.
Yeah, it reminds me of the sort of like free association type thing we were talking about earlier with the chair,
Yeah.
you know? That like spontaneous action seems like it's one that follows this sort of like pattern of associations, probably. Yeah. And like maybe taking it out of the metaphysical, you know, it sort of reminds me of existentialist sort of ideas about how, you know, the modern world sort of enforces norms on the individual and how, you know, we have these systems of governance and we have these systems of like how society is set up that sort of hammer people into shape.
Yeah.
And how you need to take sort of these radical actions of like authentic, you know, engagement with the world that like break conventions and like do things for no reason and like engage with these like deeper psychological associations to be able to escape from this sort of like confinement that modern society puts people in.
Because otherwise you're just like trapped in this like reaction pattern or something.
Yeah.
Like,
well, literally you're trapped in like patterns of, you know, you were talking about hypnotism, right? Like psychological conditioning.
Yeah.
Like so much of modern society is founded upon psychological conditioning. Like,
yeah,
it's the reason that people go into work every single day and punch in on time is psychological conditioning, right?
Right.
Like, otherwise you'd wake up whenever you feel like it.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Where were we at?
He was talking about the discrimination and finesse of choosing your thoughts. And that, I was just going to add a little bit more because I think that would speak to the discipline side of that twofold balance between discipline and spontaneity that he gets into later. But like I'll just read the next line. The power of our thoughts has been made clear to us through trial and error in other existences. So I think he's kind of referring to places like where we are now.
Yeah.
We're learning to use our discipline by like, you know, adopting this limitation and immersing ourselves in this, you know, sort of consciousness. We're developing something. And then we're waking up from it by connecting that consciousness with other parts of it. And then we're utilizing like the discipline that we've developed here. So I think he's not necessarily like contradicting himself. He's just saying that like we use both these tools, spontaneity and discrimination.
Yeah. And I think that like people can sort of empathize with that in their own lives too, right? Where it's like, if you want to live this authentic, spontaneous type of life, you know, there are sacrifices that are made for that. And I think people eventually learn, you know, impulse control is a thing that can maybe benefit your life in a way that's not going to dampen or like put a, you know, impairment on your authenticity, but in a way that'll allow you to authentically actualize yourself, maybe in a more long-term, sustainable like fashion, you know?
Right.
Like making a compromise with the world that you live in by sort of disciplining yourself to say like, well, where are the points that I really truly value being able to like make choices, you know, or being able to like pursue these associative meanings that are like truly meaningful to me? And how can I like set my life up in such a way that with the predictable patterns I can see, I can plot a course to do that? You know, that's disciplined.
Right. It again makes me think of Buddhism, where, you know, the idea of nirvana, and it's this like mythical condition of wanting nothing.
Right.
And like, I think I've touched on a little bit, but like I had such a serious like pursuit into that philosophy and that practice. But I ultimately realized I want the ability to want nothing because there's value in having that ability, but I don't want to achieve the condition of wanting nothing.
Yeah, because it's non-being, right?
Yeah, I think it is mythical and in some sense nonsensical. And Seth even talks about, I think that specifically, he says the people that are most obsessed with wanting nothing are actually most fanatically wanting something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Buddhism that's a thing too, right? You're not supposed to want enlightenment. Like even though you're on the path to it, you're just on the path to it. You're not pursuing the path to it. And you could sit down and take a nap on the path to enlightenment, right?
And because like there's like, you know, a tradition of koans and stuff, like you can like kind of accept these paradoxes as like, oh, that means it's true because it's paradoxical.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to, I mean, speaking of discrimination and finesse with your thoughts, like, I mean, just navigating that stuff requires a lot of discrimination and finesse.
Yeah, there is that thing. There is that trick that I think happens a lot with religious texts. And this is a complete sidetrack, so we can cut this if you don't want it in. But like, there's that trick where like when you confuse things enough and make it like paradoxical enough for some reason to the human mind, you're like, that's credible.
Yeah.
You know, like this self-defeating thing is credible because it's so paradoxical.
Yeah, just kind of like stops, you know, any sort of criticism in its tracks almost. Yeah. I'm sure I've been that person where I'm just like, oh, that must mean it's true.
Oh, I have a million times.
And there may be some instances where it actually is true. Like when we're speaking of the limitations of our, you know, reasoning and stuff, I feel like things can be paradoxical to our level of understanding.
Yeah.
But to say that means it's true is a totally different thing.
No, I think it says something much more interesting when things are paradoxical. Because that's like that's like where you actually start poking the holes in reality.
Well, it's like carrying a question with you, right? Like you have to like continually look for something that closes the gap.
Mm-hmm. Struggle with the Gordian knot, as it were. I like the little bit of Seth jokes on 31. We do not feel the need to hide our emotions or thoughts from others because all of us by now well recognize the cooperative nature of all consciousness and reality, and our part in it. We are highly motivated. Humorously. Could spirits be anything else? Seth telling jokes.
Yeah. That's a good line, though.
And then Rob just chimes in, I guess not.
What are spirits without motivation?
Just, I guess not.
I always think, and I'll bring this up again probably, but like he always wanted them to like record the session so he could just like pay attention. But he's like busy like trying to jot this stuff down, and I'm sure that impinges on his capacity to respond.
Yeah, this is another thread that I think is like fun to follow through. Is, you know, between episodes is just like the saga of Rob, you know, like the Rob story, like what's going on with him through all this stuff. Like in this chapter, spoiler alert to the reader, Rob's getting his bed moved around. maybe not. It's contentious whether it happens or not.
That is kind of funny, like to bring that up, the B plot of Rob.
The B plot of Rob.
There's certain books, I think it kind of peaked in The Unknown Reality, which are a series of 2 long books, but like it got so much into like physics and stuff, and like Rob was taking it upon himself to do this like research of like where our world is with this understanding. So like the parentheticals just kind of like got out of control. And
he's just writing his own little thesis in the margins.
Yeah, there's just a lot in there that's Rob. So
that makes me so happy.
Yeah,
something
to look forward to.
Do you have stuff for 31 or 30?
This was provocative just on the bottom of 31, simply because we have at our command the full use of our energy. It is not diverted into conflicts. I'm just trying to understand that. I think he just means that, like, I guess conflicts are just coming about when you don't have full use of your command or full command of your energy.
Yeah, I wonder at that. Do you think that's true?
I think it must be true if you have full command, unless you're wanting or choosing to have conflict. But I guess maybe it's not as provocative as I thought it might be.
Well, I just wonder, like, it seems like it precludes the idea that genuine conflict can exist, you know? Like conflict's sort of an accident of like not being able to have like full capacity to like work things out.
Yeah, well, and I think in those terms, conflict maybe in our level of reality like challenges you to develop abilities to avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, avoidance is one thing, but I think like meeting conflict is also a thing, right?
Yeah.
And like I think there is
Avoid it might be the wrong word.
Yeah. I think there is like a part of mature life as like a human being where it's like recognizing genuine conflict and recognizing like how to engage in conflict without backing down, right? How to know that you're right and engage in conflict,
Or not even knowing you're right, but like I feel like all of our relationships have this dynamic, right? And I feel like it is often the most challenging part is how to engage in conflict, how to communicate without like upsetting yourself or the other person. This is a lot of what my job is. Often I have to tell somebody some like disappointing news, like, no, you can't, check out your hair clippers right now because it's after this time.
Yeah.
And the way you do that sometimes is just kind of like you have to illustrate the broader context of everything. We have this, and then you show them like the way that you earn more freedoms is to, progress through treatment and stuff. But, constantly thinking in those terms of like, how do I say no to somebody and not make it upsetting?
Yeah. Right.
And same with like, I have to talk to like my coworkers or my bosses in the same manner. It's like, how do I bring this up and without, making everyone pissed off?
Yeah. I guess like reading it again, it says, because we have at our command the full use of our energy is not diverted into conflicts. So maybe that doesn't mean that conflicts don't happen. It's just that you're not diverting your energy into them, right?
Interesting. Yeah. So it kind of just reflects maybe what we're doing rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I think that's like the most like mature and responsible way of having a conflict, right? Is to be like respectfully, like we have a disagreement that we can't get past, respectfully, like I'm going to put like this is my line in the sand,
Mm-hmm. Well, and just thinking of conflict in terms of it's a type of anxiety or pain. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, but like I kind of think of pain as a signal. Like, and in this reality, the signal gets stronger the more you're neglecting it, something that needs attention.
Oh, yeah.
And so like conflict is similar in that dynamic. Like if you're neglecting that, you might be diverting your energy into conflict. And this world by design is going to make you confront that sooner or later.
Yeah, yeah. Right. 32.
Sure.
I thought this whole page was super interesting.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if Seth talks about this more, but maybe I'll just read in the middle here.
Sure.
It says, we are beginning to learn the creative joy of play. I believe, for example, that all creativity and consciousness is born in the quality of play as opposed to work, in the quickened intuitional spontaneity that I see as a constant through all my own experiences and in the experience of those I know.
I like that. When I first came across this, I was really kind of resistant to this idea because I had been, like coming from that Buddhist place, like very disciplined and focused and like hyper-focused maybe on like putting philosophy into practice. And that's how I got to meditation and stuff. And I remember other people like trying to lighten me up a little bit. And I was
right.
Like, no.
Well, because even monks a lot of time are like supposed to be able to be pretty lighthearted, right?
I think where I'm at now, I think that is like a sign of wisdom. Like sometimes you see like an old wise person and they could just laugh like a child, like there's something happening. There's a reason for that.
I forget who it is, but there's like one famous quote about Socrates that like somebody comments like the way that you know that he was like truly wise is like if you observed him like playing with children, he would like start off as like this like stately, respected like dude who can like talk about anything, but then like a kid's like, oh, you're my horse, and he's like, okay, and he'll like get on all fours and let the kid ride around on his back all day long because he's like with kids he'll play,
And
he like understands the value of it.
Yeah, and if you can tap into that joy, I mean, Seth, I think, is taking it to a whole nother level. He's saying that consciousness is born in the quality of play.
Yeah, I think that that's true, like, and I think that there's a lot of work that's actually been done in terms of sociology and psychology talking about this phenomenon that like so much of like what exists in our social reality can sort of be paralleled in the idea of play, where play is sort of this like interesting like structure of rules that are also arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's like they're important and fundamental rules, but they are also entirely unrelated to your actual experience of the world, right? And like there's this weird like duality to that inspires this like burst of like creative energy, and like it's sort of like a microcosm of that creative energy that all of our like social experience is, really, because like everything we do in society is actually just kind of play.
That word arbitrary really like put it all together for me. It made me think. So I started rewatching Game of Thrones recently. Daisy had never seen it, and it holds up very well, at least so far, the first couple seasons. But there's a scene where Lord Varys and Tyrion, also known as the eunuch and the imp, are just having some wine, talking about the realm or whatever. And Lord Varys like presents this riddle, like, there's a king, a rich man, and a priest or something all in the same room. And then there's a sellsword in the room, which is basically just a soldier for hire.
Yeah.
And he says that each of those first three, like, tell the sellsword to kill the other two. And the question is, like, where does power reside? And the answer ends up being is where men believe it resides.
Right.
And I thought that was especially relevant to the Seth material where he's talking about our beliefs create reality. But this idea of arbitrary, like our idea of money, it only functions because we all agree that it has value.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our government and the people in power. We all kind of agree. That you can point to like, this riddle is pointing to, it's cutting out our misconception that might makes right.
Yeah.
Because you would think the person with the sword has the power, but it's what they believe is going to direct how they enact that power.
Yeah, and what the power is, right? Like like violence is just violence, but like when it becomes political, it takes on a meaning, it becomes something, right? Like the difference between a just war and like like what's it called? Like a lynch mob, right? Like what's the difference,
But just I feel like that sense of like arbitrary, or we're all agreeing to play by these rules, is a sort of play, right?
It is. It's foundationally the same thing as play. And like you can see it with children where they get very excited about certain kinds of play that mirror society.
Yeah.
Like kids love playing with fake money.
Right.
They love trading things for fake money. They love dressing up specifically as different roles and taking on the roles temporarily.
Emulating all the things they see adults doing.
They love games of authority, right? Yeah. Authority and submission.
And they probably learn more by that play than they do, in other ways where we're trying to like actually drill something into their head.
Well, and a lot of what we try to teach children is content, right? Like we want them to learn like some fact like being true, or like you want them to be able to exercise a certain kind of like intellectual talent or something like that. But like this other kind of learning is more fundamental.
Yeah.
It's just learning how to be a person like in a society. Because like if you don't know the games, right? The rules in the games that like people play in society, you're not even a person. Right. The society, right?
Well, yeah, that's why you have to teach your children to play by the rules, because if nobody else wants to play with you, you're going to lose the game of games.
Yeah.
You're going to be ostracized from social existence, which usually amounts to, a lot of pain and probably death.
Because humans are social animals. We can't exist independently of one another. It's foundational to who we are. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting to drill down into that. And let me just back up, because I think the paragraph preceding kind of gave it a very interesting context. When one has been born and has died many times, experiencing extinction with each death, and when this experience is followed by the realization that existence still continues, then a sense of divine comedy enters in.
Right, yeah.
And that is very true. And I think maybe that speaks to like some of these wise old people that we were just describing that have like a childlike ability to enjoy things. Like maybe they've come to terms with like that divine comedy.
Yeah, Divine Comedy, because that's like a play on words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like it's specifically saying like, from this divine perspective, the world is just a comedy, like a play, like a comedic play being performed.
Yeah.
And like I think, wise people understand that, where they can navigate the idea of just simply playing a new role for a little while.
Well, think of the adverb in the idiom deadly serious.
Mm-hmm.
It's serious because we're in a position where our consciousness makes us believe that like death is a sort of an extinction.
Right.
And like how coming out of that, you're just automatically placed in this place of play. Like maybe the most intense way to play is to take on that limitation, forget, all of what you are, fully adopt this, illusion and experience all the benefits from like total immersion.
Well, and a lot of people are drawn to actual serious harm because they can't tell the difference, where there's just this like complete gradient between they begin playing a social game and they end up, drinking Kool-Aid and killing all themselves, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, where it's like a lot of this like
because they take it too seriously.
They end up taking it seriously. It becomes their life, you know? And like that's how a lot of cult stuff, works, is you start with games and the games become more and more serious until they're everything in your life. It's all that there is.
That's interesting.
And I wanted to highlight this other aspect of the idea of play too, because this is also fundamental to it, is that the concept of play also includes, in like many, many languages, the idea of the erotic, right? Or like if we're talking about like domination and power and submission, like people talk about play in those angles as well.
Wasn't expecting it to go there.
Right.
But that's true. And the erotic, like thinking of like eros, like doesn't that like represent like creativity too?
Right, exactly.
Like, so
it's like, especially if you're taking, if we keep running with this like Freudian theme that we've been talking about, like the fact that these sexual drives are not just sexual drives, but they're like psychosocial sexual things, where it's like your entire personality matrix is sort of framed around these like sexual erotic sort of like ways of being, So it's like your entire interaction with the social world is sort of like based off of these things that become eroticized. And in doing so, it creates sort of like the furnace with which you creatively recreate yourself and the world,
Yeah, through like biological reproduction and
biological reproduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also psychological reproduction, like you create your psyche in these sort of like categories to fit your sexual needs.
Because you're playing a game where you want to be a desirable mate.
Right. Or you want to have a certain itch scratched, right?
Right.
Like you're the type of person who, needs to be in a submissive role. So you'll like structure yourself to be submissive in certain like instances, right? Because there's like this fundamental psychological need, which then comes out during play,
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Man, we're going to have to start a side podcast just on this subject.
Play is, when I saw the word play, dude, I was like, this is such a heavy like word. It's like, play is so fundamental to like human society. It's fucking crazy.
Well, and as a writer, and as I've mentioned already, that I enjoy the meta narratives, and Seth uses this specific example, not that it's new, but the idea of a play being just like something on a stage.
Yeah.
And taking our life, like I've long used this idea of like trying to like expand my idea of reality. Like everything I'm thinking and doing is just like upon this stage, and like how do I get backstage? What role is the audience in this? Like this dark attention that I sense is there but I can't see.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot to that.
Yeah. I think it's another way of getting at, are you familiar with like the Nietzschean the eternal recurrence?
Not that familiar.
So like one of his ideas is like, if you want to fully like associate the unbearable weight of like existence and meaning onto yourself, like one way you can think about it is like, what if reality was recreated over and over and over again for infinity? and you were fated to have to live the exact same moment an infinite number of times, because you live your life an infinite number of universes. But right now is the only time you get to make the choice. And every other time you have to make the same choice again, right? It's the same kind of thing of like, if you think about the world that way, it becomes sort of like you're scripting out the stage play that you're going to be doing for the rest of existence.
It's highly pressurized.
Yeah.
That almost like is counterintuitive to the sense of play, when there's just like, there's like the ultimate stakes involved.
Right.
I like Seth's version where it's a little softer. It's like, it's value fulfillment, and there's no like dire consequence if you like choose the wrong path.
Right. Because Seth is going to say like, well, that's not even a big deal. Right?
Yeah. He's kind of just said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's just like, you'll die. It's whatever.
It's a very pleasant thing to hear, because we don't hear that a lot from our religious figures, or.
Oh no, usually they're talking about hellfire, right?
Or even philosophy. They're not often saying like, yeah, it's kind of a relief or a big joke or.
Oh yeah, to philosophers, the happiest story you ever get is, well, I mean, it won't be painful. Like, non-existence isn't painful.
It's just eternal non-existence. You won't even know about it.
Wow, thanks, man. Yeah, no, Seth is a lot more optimistic. That's for sure.
Okay, so we're still on, or there's still another thing about death, but I love this one too. All of my deaths would have been adventures had I realized what I know now. On the one hand, you take life too seriously. On the other, you do not take playful existence seriously enough.
I love that last line.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Because he's saying it behooves us to know that we are playing. And so that, but with that knowledge, we can play even more seriously.
Yeah, you need to take the play seriously.
Yeah.
Because, as a person who really takes that creative endeavor, like, fully for what it's worth, it's like, this is what you're doing. This is what you're here for.
Yeah. This is why I always end up like preaching to anyone who listens, or if they're struggling in life, I'm always saying like the most important thing you can do is to figure out what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, like, I just feel like so much depression and those sorts of maladies are stemming from someone that's kind of like given up on realizing what they want, or they think they can't get it. But like, I know in my experience, like figuring out what I want and taking a path of total struggle is meaningful and kind of joyous if I believe it's on the path to what I want. Not even getting what I want, but like, because I believe that's what I want and I can take a step forward towards it, that step is meaningful, even if there's a lot of pain and challenge involved.
Schopenhauer calls that the aesthetic view of one's own suffering. You view your life path that you're struggling through the lens of as if it were like an epic poem or like a story or something.
And it can be hard, it can be painful, but it's not depressing.
Right. Because you're viewing it, as play, as aesthetics. Yeah. Right?
And it isn't to say that like figuring out what you really want is an easy thing to do. But I think to the same extent, you can, if you don't know, that is your pursuit then. Mm-hmm. And that can be a struggle, and that can be an ongoing struggle. And I think it's something we all deal with, and especially like, kids and teenagers and people that are trying to decide what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah. Like the struggle for meaning is one of the hardest ones that we have as people.
Yeah. But having the bravery of just like switching gears, like it's not always the same thing, right? Like you're not born wanting one thing and that's your path. Like
if only we could all be so lucky, right?
I don't know. It could be kind of hellish.
That's true. Yeah. If you were fated to something. I think it's so important too, you're talking about like the being able of finding out what you need or what you want out of life. But also I think about this a lot, how the conditions we're currently living in, with the place that our society's at, how there is this fundamental need to carve out space for these circumstances that have arbitrary repercussions, like that. Because we were talking about how play, one of the essential parts of it is that it's arbitrary. Mm-hmm. Like I was reading, to get ready for this, I was reading like some old like sociological, anthropological articles, and like put the idea of play like really like foundationally there. And like one of the categories that's like so important is like if you're making money off doing it, it's not really play, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's fundamental to you earning your keep, it's not play. It's
Right.
work, right?
Right.
And it's like I think that a lot of people nowadays live in a society where they spend so much of their time earning their keep. They don't have a lot of space for this creative, endeavor where like failures can be embraced because they don't mean anything really. Where like they can be meaningful psychologically, but they don't have to be meaningful to the terms of your existential struggle in life, Like I think it's a tragedy that not everyone becomes an artist, because I really do think every human being has this innate drive and talent to do artistry. That only a rarefied amount of people in our society become truly gifted as artists or even dabble in art, right?
I want to say that too, but then the more I've been in the world, I realize some people, what they want, what their passion is to be an accountant.
Oh, those people are lizard people.
I know it, but when I used to like have such like pity for that, and now I think like, well, thank God, because as an artist, I need an accountant. You know what I mean? It's like the world needs like certain things, and like it's kind of beautiful to think like, and this is a Sethian idea, and I don't know how soon it's gonna come to light here, but like the idea that if we all actually like followed our real passion, we would be helping the world in the best possible way. It's a very flowery idea, I get, but like I really want to believe that.
I mean, I think if we constructed a society in such a way that we allowed people to do so, I think it would be better than what we currently have.
For sure. I mean, the example that I always point to, and it's obviously an extreme example, but like, let's say McCartney and Lennon like decided to help the world and they were going to like start a charity.
Sure.
They wouldn't have made the world nearly a fraction of a better place than they would have by pursuing their passion and their music. It's an extreme example.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's kind of what I'm wanting to believe in that sense.
Well, because that's what people value at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Is like authentic value fulfillment. So like by definition, the best world is one in which everyone can do authentic value fulfillment.
Yeah, we got to help ourselves like be able to pursue these things that are meaningful to us.
And like there is a fundamental sense, or like there's a point at which, you have to be the one that takes the reins and is like, I'm going to do this. Like if you're not buying into it, people can't make you be creative, right?
Right. Yeah, and that is a struggle in the world, is like, how can you or how should you like try to help someone that doesn't seem to want help?
Yeah, exactly.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. There's one more line about play, or at least one. We enjoy a sense of play that's highly spontaneous, and yet I suppose you would call it responsible play. Certainly it is creative play. We play, for example, with the mobility of our consciousness. I mean, that doesn't seem like that new in the context of what he's been telling us about them creating their reality.
Yeah, that was the phrase that got me thinking about along the terms of like BDSM. When I heard the phrase responsible play, I was like, aha.
Safe words.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to play responsibly.
Good thing you threw that in. Yeah. I mean, it should be noted. Yeah. Like if you're playing in a way that hurts someone else, then that's
you're not doing it right.
It goes back to our continuing conversation about power and responsibility.
I yell at kids every day at recess, man. Look, if you're playing a game and you're hurting that person's feelings, play a different game, man.
Yep. How do they react to that?
They're pretty good. Kids are really intuitively good at play.
Well, I think especially when you're pointing out, like somebody's getting hurt, I think kids are maybe almost as good or better than adults at accepting those terms. Like, you're right.
Yeah, and like, I'm thinking of an example of like, there was this one girl literally like the other day that was like really sad because she couldn't go play with her friends. And then it was like, well, why can't you go play with them? Oh, well, the one girl just really doesn't like me. And I was like, okay, go play with those girls. I've never played with them before. It doesn't matter. You're in elementary school. If you go up and say, "What are you playing?" they'll get you in the game somehow. Like they can just like make up a role for you. And they did instantly. It was like 2 minutes later, boom, now they're playing their friends.
That's beautiful. I thought you were going to say you're just going to tell her, you're going to die someday. You got to take this seriously.
No. They don't understand mortality anyways.
And that's beautiful too. And I think that's relating to what I was saying about the old monk. Like they get that sense of like divine comedy because like
they do understand mortality.
They let go of, their attachment to, whatever you're attached to when it comes to mortality. I guess your life or your continuation or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why we love kids so much, is because they have that, what would you call it? Just freedom.
Yeah, they don't put brakes on anything.
Yeah.
They just do it.
Yeah. It's funny how much kids also like suffer for having that freedom. Do you think it's for having it? Like, I mean, I see a kid crying and like, God, when's the last time I felt that miserable? And I don't know if it's that I don't feel that way or if I'm just able to like handle it in a way that's just not, burdening everyone.
No, I do think that I think they do feel deeper sometimes.
Yeah, the stakes are high when you're a kid somehow.
The emotions are high. The stakes are so low.
Okay, that's a good distinction.
Because they'll be crying about the dumbest thing, and then 2 minutes later they get distracted and forget about it. But when they're crying, they're sad, man.
I've become a very even person, and that helps me a lot in difficult situations. But like sometimes I'm envious of the people because it seems to kind of go hand in hand. Like I don't know if I get the highest highs as somebody that's like experiencing lower lows than I am.
Yeah, right. It's sort of what's it called? I think it becomes a different thing.
Yeah.
You sort of have the same thing. You can have the aesthetic appreciation of your suffering, but you also, I think as you mature, get the aesthetic appreciation of your own joy,
Yeah.
Which is an experience of joy on a completely different kind of level.
I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. It's just like it's a graduation into a different form of joy. And there's always, I mean, as I feel reading this material, there's always more growth to have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had some things on 33, I suppose. It's sort of keeping with what we're talking about as like talking about my job, I guess. For the listener, in case this hasn't been brought up, I work as an elementary school substitute teacher. So when I'm talking about, kids on the playground, this is like my day-to-day job right now.
What ages are you usually interacting with?
I usually do kindergarten right up to 4th grade. And I spent a lot of time in a lot of those grades over the past school year. We're in spring right now, so I've gotten a chance to be in all the different grades for a pretty significant amount of time.
Because you're full-time at one school as a substitute, so you...
Correct, yeah.
You have this unique position, right? Like a lot of teachers just have one age group and one set of kids. And
right, yeah.
Kind of like...
I float around different ages, but at the same time, I'm at the same school, so... I get the consistency where I can, get to know all the kids that I'm working with.
That's very cool. Like we have something similar at our work where, there's like 17 units and there's this thing called the utility pool, which is basically people that are willingly the department that like fills in where there's holes with sick calls and stuff. So some people really love that.
Yeah, doing the floater jobs.
Yep.
But the reason I brought that up is, on 33, we start getting some talk about like, Seth's sort of modus operandi in terms of like setting up their job as a teacher, right? It's right here. Now in my work as a teacher, I travel into many dimensions of existence, even as a traveling professor might give lectures in various states or countries. Here, however, the resemblance ends, largely since before I can begin to work, I must set up preliminary psychological structures and learn how to know my pupils before teaching can even begin. And then Jane's delivery was quite a bit slower now. I must have a thorough knowledge of the particular system of reality in which my pupil operates, of his or her system of thought, of the symbols that are meaningful. The stability of the pupil's personality must be correctly gauged by me. The needs of that personality cannot be ignored, but must be taken into consideration. So I thought that was like this really interesting relationship that Seth has as like a teacher figure.
Yeah.
where there's sort of this like fitting of the Seth personality into the psychological structure of the student that he's trying to teach. To me, this sort of like resonates because like I've been reading some like educational theory recently, and it talks about like the idea of like the teacher student and the student teacher. There's like this sort of necessary relationship if you're really trying to like enlighten a student, where you sort of have to be able to play the role of like, formally I'm teaching you, but I'm also learning from you how to teach you and learning from you sort of the thought structures you're bringing to the table before I can do that, you know?
It makes total intuitive sense. And I mean, on Seth's level, especially, that he's talking about like penetrating different, realities analogous to ours with their own sets of rules. And like, you can see how like that's almost like speaking a different language. Like you have to be able to have that skill set to even relate to people in that situation.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder, like, I was gonna bring this up in relation to something else, but like, it's interesting that like Seth has been on Earth in different lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that interesting thing of like, a lot of this book has to do with sort of materialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like demystifying the idea of materialism. But it seems interesting to imagine that if Seth had chose to be in a different time frame of, human society, that the lesson would probably not have as much to do with that,
Different time frame, but also physical reality.
Yeah, because like other societies, I feel like are less, physically, materially focused than this one is.
It's largely because our advances in technology that revolve around like physical laws and ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're like specifically.
We're like post-enlightenment,
Yeah, like we give a level of certainty to the idea of materialism. We give a higher level of certainty than anyone else probably could, just because the nature of our position in terms of technological power.
Yeah. And like having to explain this idea, even like the idea we just talked about forever, like the idea of like play and creativity, it's like there are other cultures where that's much more intuitively understood than the one that Seth's currently writing in, right?
Yeah.
It sort of makes an interesting point to me, like the meta text of like, why does Seth choose to teach here? Like
in this point in time.
And during this point in time, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like an interesting question, if you're like, it gets to what you were talking about with like the predicting the future thing, right? Where it's like, if you're a timeless being, you could have written this book anytime,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. I think the answer may be revealed in Seth's own words at some point. But if I had to guess, it's probably because as a society, we are coming into that point where we need to like wake up from our idea that our consciousness is just this thing that we represent as like a physical self and a physical reality.
Yeah. We're in the possibility space of like, we've gone down the wrong direction. And it's like, oh, we need course correction.
But I don't even think you would put it in terms of wrong. It was part of what was always supposed to happen. We were always supposed to like have this dream and then wake up from it.
Interesting.
But along the same lines, later in this book, he'll talk about speakers, and I think I brought it up once before, but they're basically speakers. His term speaker is used to define anyone that has like this extra dimensional knowledge that's trying to like, there's points in time where like it just continually needs to be re-injected into the culture. And so like all our religious figures like have varying degrees of ability to translate those things into, physical terms and to deliver that message. But like he's saying, and I think I brought this up too, that like, and to some extent, like every artist is a speaker, or like, if you want to take the broadest sense, all of us have access to this like deeper knowledge, but
that's sort of the way of like, explaining like what previous religious figures were.
Right. And in the sense that like, the most extreme examples or the most powerful of these speakers are like him, very intentional, like a teacher type entity that's trying to bring a specific knowledge into the world, just so we don't like, go off in our own delusion and destroy ourselves, basically.
Right. No, I remember him saying something about that. I'm still excited to hear because there was like the little like promise of like, I'm going to tell you about this one religious order that like you don't have any historical evidence of, but it was around.
There's also, it got brought up in our book club today. He promised a book just on Christ.
Oh.
And Rob and Jane, unfortunately, like never took him up on it. Just would have been so interesting.
Rob's just like, I'm not doing the stenography for that one, bro.
They're like so caught up. I mean, I admire their discipline, but like he's a painter and she's a poet, and they're so caught up in like their own precious creative time. And I think I talked about this recently too, that I've gone through the same struggles with just like managing time and the delusion thereof and using that for creative purposes. But,
oh yeah. But that reminds me.
Yeah,
dude,
go ahead.
I forgot. There's a picture. There's like a painting of Seth that exists, right?
Yeah. Daisy, I think, just came across it in The Nature of Personal Reality, maybe. But that Rob painted it, and Seth's like, yeah, that's basically what I might look like. And it's not kind of what you think, I guess. Have you seen it?
No. I was wondering if we should do it now, or if it would be good to like start next episode by like describing it to the listener.
I think maybe like next time we should just like, you shouldn't look at it until we get on mic, and then we'll just you can.
I'll give us like fresh impressions.
But what do you think like he should look like, or like what do you think your reaction would be like?
Okay, here's the thing. My impression of Seth is he does not look like, this is speculation to the listener. I have not seen the picture yet. Here's like, Seth to me does not look like the historical depiction of like a Christ figure, right? He's like sort of like a short, old, balding guy. Like if you imagine like a human, it's like if he looks almost a little bit like a gray alien, but like more like the guy you would cast as a gray alien if you were in like where you're like in central casting and you're like, we need a guy that we can put the makeup on, and he'll run around and be the gray alien because he's like 5 foot on the dot tall, like kind of big headed, like old guy with like, like the scrawny neck, big Adam's apple kind of thing,
Okay, and where is this coming from? This is your intuition?
That's how he talks, man. That's the kind of person he seems like.
Well, he talks about how our bodies are like this perfect reflection of our inner selves. Mm-hmm. And that always trips me up and makes me wonder, like, because we have like different sorts of people that we're like attracted to, or we're intrigued by their looks. And like, I asked the question, what's in a name earlier? What's in an image? What's in a body?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's very interesting. I like your answer.
Yeah. He's got like, I bet he's got really sharp eyes, a little rodent-y, but not like in a bad way.
So you don't think he's like got like black, like slick back hair with like a pencil mustache and
nowhere that sophisticated. I mean, this man's running around in the middle of sessions like trying to find matches to light a cigarette. Well,
that's Jane. Yeah, I think that's literally like Jane still has her own agency.
Okay.
Yeah. But I imagine he can like tap into whatever enjoyment there is in smoking a cigarette.
Like refined still. Like he wouldn't wear a suit. He'd wear like a really nice like cardigan,
You might be onto something, Joe. We're going to have to find out next week.
I'm excited to just nail it. Like I got Seth beamed it into my brain. He shot me with the pink laser beam.
Yeah. Joe, you're going to turn out to be like the most dogmatic. You're going to come in so skeptical, and then you're going to be like the biggest Sethian at the end of this.
Yeah, my eyes are going to roll back, and I'm going to be like floating in the middle of the room. Yeah. And I'm just going to be like chanting stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, stay tuned.
Stay tuned for the Seth face reveal.
All right. See you next time. Bye. That's our show, but fear not, the never-ending conversation continues next week. If you're enjoying the show, please be so kind as to subscribe, like, rate, and review. And if you're feeling frisky, tell a friend. Contact us at implicatingthereal@gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/implicatingthereal. We are doing our best, but whatever support you can lend helps us appreciably. We are not affiliated with the publishers or proprietors, but we encourage you to get the books. You can follow along as we endeavor to dive deep into the Sethian worldview, and there's really nothing like cultivating your own relationship with material. Until next week, we wish you a fond good evening.